Time being 7 o'clock, call the Ripon Area Fire District Board meeting to order. It is Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. Roll call, Mr. Gasky. Here. Ms. Schatzinger.
Here.
Mr. Page. Here. Mr. Wirtz. Here. Mr. Wargula.
Here.
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
And Mr. Van Brink is present. Any changes? I'll make one comment. That call is coming in for the audit, so when that comes in, we'll just handle that regardless of where we are on here. Motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Any public comment? Approved secretary's reports.
Make a motion to approve.
Both.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Treasurer's report. Accounts payable. Any questions for the chief?
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
Page 1. Dispatch.
Do you want me to go through, because I have quite a few of them, I know that's one of them that, go ahead, you go ahead, finish.
You go ahead.
Okay, page 1, the graphic sign and letter, that was lettering for, the vehicles, and along with the dispatch on the bottom from Baycom. Those two things were dispatch related, when we changed our numbers and had to have our reprogramming done for the radios. The reason that's been such a delay, especially on the Baycom one, is because the invoice, there were some things that needed to be adjusted on the invoice because we were getting charges for things that weren't ours because they were doing the police department and EMS at the same time. So that's why the delay in the invoice was there. So, would that answer your questions?
That's that question, yep.
Okay.
And then I thought I had one more, but I don't know where.
The
Oh,
Renner's fire equipment, that was, maintenance that was done due to our annual testing. And, did you have something else on page one?
What's the MIV rebuild it says? From Pierce, $3,000. 2005 Pierce passenger MIV rebuild. Under Renner's fire equipment, $44.19.
What 3/4 of it we
A
down?
valve, it was a valve replacement that had to be done.
All right.
So, that was on engine 16 and, that, our frontline engine, and it was just a bad valve. They go bad and they have to get replaced
I just
once in a
curious.
while. Yeah, that's what it was. Go over to page 2. The 5 alarm, that was, stuff for our gas meters and then the reimbursement to Kim Davis. Kim has been handling the advertisement for the part-time firefighters and kind of filtering applications with me. So that's what the reimbursement to her was. And the quality plumbing was a leak that we had upstairs, and the Renner's fire equipment, we purchased a new 24-foot extension ladder to replace one of our old ones. The other stuff is just kind of just miscellaneous stuff. That's all I have.
Any other questions? If not, we'll look for a motion to approve accounts payable, treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion to approve accounts receivable and treasurer's report as presented.
Or second to the motion?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Anything on outstanding, Jim?
No, again, probably at the start of the year will be the first couple came in, but nothing crazy.
There's a few more sitting on my desk too,
Okay.
that have come in, so. 4 or 5 of them.
I do have a question. Remember, you got town and Nebraska on there, was that our last? Term? So it hasn't come in since the last meeting?
That's what I've seen. Because it's been Barbara through for,
I can go see if it's on my desk, if it's the one that's on my desk.
You can do it later.
Yeah, so I know there was just one from that recently. But, yeah, I got like a few deposits that need to go in, so.
Maybe after the meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
Chief's report.
All right, ready?
We are.
We just didn't get one.
Oh. Here, I'll pass
Thank
that
you.
around. That's
Appreciate
the
that,
monthly
Tim.
report right there, sir. So the monthly report's being passed around, but I'll go on through the chief's report. Fire section update inspection spreadsheet has been sent to Ann at City Hall, and all the inspections will be completed within the next couple of weeks. Projects updates, there's nothing to report on the upstairs or garages, no changes. However, the high school started doing a community project days, helping different places throughout the community with projects, tasks, or cleanup. One project was to spread mulch at a location in the city, and one of the other ones that was chosen or asked if we needed help was to help at the fire station. So 9 students last week, and 1 teacher came and cleaned up the station of the stuff that we needed to get rid of, rolled up hose, and prepped the station for painting, and did a bunch of other little projects around the station. So it was awesome. Thank you to the high school and the students for doing that. They were pretty excited, and it was a lot of hard work for them lifting. Also, I want to thank the town of Ripon for letting us use the dump truck. They let us use a small dump truck that we had put the junk in that we needed to get rid of. So thank you to the town of Ripon and the high school.
Bill will be coming.
Is that any certain group from the high school or just?
No, it was just random.
Just a random
Yeah.
kid?
Was it on
Yeah.
Friday?
What's that?
Was it on Friday?
Yep.
It was like it was seniors if it was on Friday. They were out throughout the community, if that's what it was.
Yeah, I think it was on Friday. Yeah. I don't know what the actual group was, but, and so, we're gonna provide them with a lunch with the firefighters, at the high school. So, in appreciation of that.
Recruit while
You
you
could-
got 'em.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, I tried. They were all laughing by the end of the time they left here. But we ran 28 calls for the month. You're gonna see we had two structure fires on there. One was on Blackburn Street. It was a second floor porch that was on fire. And then we had a fire in an apartment complex last week. That was a laundry room, and it's on the second page, third one up from the bottom, a fire in the laundry room. So those were the 2 more significant calls we had. Calls for the year 285. We were given mutual aid twice, and we gave it twice, and we received it twice. So it was an even trade-off this year, or this month. Open house was a huge success. We conducted fire safety talks in the schools and participated in trick-or-treating. Grants, we're investigating obviously the SAFER grant. We'll have more information on that to come over the next few months, couple months. The budget, as far as the budget, I just keep watching it, just trying to make sure we're good. So I guess that's all I have until new business.
Okay, any questions of the chief? Okay. Now business and, so we can approve the 2022 budget during our regular, board meeting. Need to discuss anything on that, Jim?
No, again, just if you have any questions or anything like that, but it's a special meeting, public hearing, so I don't have anything different at this time.
So we'll look to approve the 2022 budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2022 budget as presented.
Is there a second to the motion?
A second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. You got something under new business, chief?
Yes. So, as far as the part-time firefighters, my goal was to have it staffed, by November 1st. And, I know that I didn't think that would happen, and a lot of speculation, of probably more towards December. But we interviewed, or we had 14 part-time firefighter applications. We did hire 5. Kyler Latspeak, Griffin Kintoff, Aaron Olson, Tyler Granados, and Dakota Calbaum. One remains in a background check right now, for further review. There's 6 applicants that were non-qualified, and 2 of those applications, 2 of the applicants we put in a file marked interns for future use. We did reach out to the cadets, or 4 cadets to the high school. The high school got back to us, and the way the high school does it is, there's an internship program through the high school where the kids go and they get paid while they're there. Well, that's not a budgeted item for us. There's no way we could do that right now. So the school also does something different where they give a semester credit, a credit for each semester that the kids do it, for the ones that don't pay. Talking with the counselors, and telling them about kind of where we're going with the department, the opportunities that would be there for the cadets. They had, that's your phone call. Ripon Area Fire District.
Hello, this is Brian Cole calling. How are you?
Good, Brian, how are you? Are you calling for the audit?
I am.
Okay. You're on speakerphone, so I'm gonna kind of put you in the middle of the table here. And
Okay.
that'll go off. All right, can you hear me okay?
I can. And let me know if you can't hear me for some reason.
Okay. So, the board, I'm the fire chief, but the board's here. President Vanderbrink is here, and so I'm just gonna be quiet, and we're all listening.
So whenever you want to start, Brian, go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Well, first off, I just want to thank you for the time here this evening, and I also want to thank you for allowing me to call in. I certainly appreciate the convenience of being able to do that. In terms of the audit, I believe you should have copies of the financial statements, and then there's also an additional letter that was provided. Does everyone have all of those documents?
Yes.
Yep, okay. I'm just going to make a few comments on the financial statements. I'll walk you through a few pages. I'm going to try to not move around too much, given that I'm doing this over the phone. But if anyone has any questions of any of the audit information, please feel free to ask. So I'm going to start out with the financial statements. And I guess I'm just going to start with an overview of the contents. So just as a reminder, that includes our independent auditor's report. comment there that, again, we've shared in the past, but I just want to highlight and emphasize as well. So, that being said, I want to just make a brief comment on the independent auditor's report, and that is on pages 1 through 3 of the financial statements. I'm actually going to refer to the top of page 2, which is labeled as the opinion paragraph. And I'm just going to pause there for a second. So, the opinion paragraph basically states that, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the district as of December 31st, 2020. Essentially, that is considered to be a clean or a positive opinion. That is the highest level of assurance that we can provide as part of the audit process. Again, it means that I believe that your financial statements are complete and accurate and in accordance with our professional standards. Does anyone have any questions on the audit opinion itself?
No, so go ahead.
No? Okay. Okay, then I just want to move ahead to page 4. And page 4 is labeled as the statement of net position. So this statement presents the organization's assets, liabilities, and then net position. Net position essentially being the equity reserves that the organization has built up over time. And you can see this is, comparative where we've got the columns for 2020 versus 2019. I just want to make a few comments or highlights, and I'm just going to work right down the page. It starts out at the top with your current assets. I'd say the highlight here is the increase in your cash balances at the end of, and if you want me to slow down or help get you focused on where I'm referring to, please let me know. From a cash and investment standpoint, your cash balance being $341,756 at the end of 2020, that's up from approximately $230,000 at the end of 2019. So always nice to see that increase in cash. You can see the other asset categories there. I'm going to just jump down to about a third of the way down. You'll see the lines for total capital assets. Capital assets from an accounting standpoint, we try to identify anything that's capital in nature, and then from an accounting standpoint, that gets depreciated or expensed over time. The net book value of those total capital assets at the end of 2020 being just over $2.5 million, that did decrease a little bit from 2019 because of the normal process of how we expense or record depreciation for those assets. So those will continue to be depreciated in future years as we move forward. Overall, your total assets, the next line there, you can see your total assets being very comparable to the previous year at $2,937,000 versus $2,930,000. So overall, pretty consistent in terms of your overall cash balances. If we move down the page a little bit further, you'll see the references to liabilities. The current liabilities, focusing on accounts payable and accrued and other current liabilities, that's all essentially bills or obligations that are due that just hadn't physically been paid as of 12/31/2020. And there too, you can see the overall balance did increase slightly over the prior year. And then the last category there I'm going to jump to is the net position. Net position being your equity reserves. If you look at the total for your equity reserves, you can see at the end of 2019, your total equity was $2,890,000 versus the end of 2020, you're at $2,868,000. So you did have a slight decrease in your equity. In terms of, and we'll talk more about your revenues and expenses when we get to the next page, but in terms of that net asset and those equity reserves, I think it's always important to look at how those are yes, the organization owns those assets. They do have equity in those assets, but again, it's tied up in those assets, and the only way that you'd be able to free that up would be to sell those assets. So again, that's why we're presenting it as that net investment, just to show the reader of the statements that, again, it's really tied up in terms of your capital assets or invested in your capital assets. So again, I'd say the highlights are your equity and also your cash balances. Does anyone have any questions on that before I go any further or make any more comments?
No, looks like we're good.
Okay, I just want to make a brief comment with regards to the WRS, and I'd say let me know if you have questions as I'm going through this, or also feel free to call timeout and have me move on if it's something that you again, would just rather have me skip over. So what happens from an audit standpoint is because the organization participates in the Wisconsin retirement system, the Wisconsin retirement system as a whole, they go through the process of having an actuarial study, and as everybody knows, that system is fairly well funded. What's happened recently with the results of those actuarial studies is the actuaries have determined that the Wisconsin retirement system has been either slightly overfunded or slightly underfunded in recent years, and as a result of that, you come back to your financial statements, you have to allocate and record your portion, your percentage of that over or underfunding. And when you look at the financial statements and you see about a third of the way down where it says net pension asset of $23,340 for 2020, and then if you also move about a third of the way from the bottom where there's a line that references net pension liability, for 2020 it's zero, but for 2019 it's $25,518. I just wanted to highlight or point out that the references to the net pension, the asset, the liability, it all relates to the Wisconsin retirement system. It's due to that actuarial study. It's nothing that you can control. To be honest, it really doesn't affect your budget. It's just something that we need to report in accordance with our professional standards. When I think of the impact on the organization, I would always come back to your budget, and you have always budgeted benefit payments for what you expect to make to the Wisconsin retirement system. I would continue to do that because that's the piece of the equation that you control. So, but I just wanted to point that out because it is on your statement of net position, and if you get into the financial statement footnotes, there's actually a lot of information relative to the pension system and the pension plan. So, just trying to be brief with that overview. Is that a fair overview, or does anyone have any other questions on that?
Yeah, basically what Brian does is findings aren't bad. Findings are things that he finds. I think sometimes there's a negative connotation to the word findings as it's a bad thing. It's just, as an auditor, sorry to speak at you, Brian, but that's what Brian's job is to find out what details there are and to point them out. One of the findings will be that he did the audit, that Shank did the audit. We don't do our own audit. That's a finding. It's not a bad thing, it's just a finding. Right, Brian?
Yep, that's a fair statement. Yep. Yeah, and I'll talk more about page 28 here in a minute, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, down the road. It's just, sometimes I think people hear this during the conversations, and maybe it's their first budget presentations and stuff, and audits and stuff, so sometimes they can get worried that there's things that are bad, but they're not bad just because it's a finding, so. Go ahead, Brian.
I will definitely address that. I'll definitely address that more in a few minutes here.
Appreciate it.
So I'll come back to that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I do want to walk you through page 5 as well, and that's labeled as a statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. And now here too, you can see as you work down the page, you can see your revenues, your expenses. I just want to make a few comments on this because there's some things that maybe are non-recurring, I guess is the way I would describe them. So the way this starts out is it starts out with your operating revenues. So at the top, the first category there, it's probably the fourth line down labeled total operating revenues. You can see your revenues for 2020, $482,000 versus $460 for the previous year. So your revenues were up slightly. There's detail of the expenses in the next section there, going about halfway down the page. You'll see a reference to total operating expenses. Your expenses did increase. You're at $727,000 for 2020 versus 576 for the previous year. That's because of that line labeled equipment support, and there's 202,000 of additional expenses. Those are all non-capital expenses, and it's primarily the air packs that you purchased. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, as we continue to move down the page, I don't know if I should pause there. Does anybody have any questions?
Nope, we're good to go.
No? Okay. Okay, then I'm just going to keep moving down the page. And just a couple other highlights. When you get into the non-operating revenues and expenses section, I just want to point out the last line in that category, in the non-operating revenue section where it says other non-operating revenues and expenses 2020. It's presenting a number of $20,658. I just wanted to point out that that includes the assistance that you received to help purchase the pagers. And then if you keep going down a little bit, there's a line labeled capital contributions that has $195,630 on it. That capital contribution piece, that's where we've presented the additional amounts that were essentially assessed back to the participants to help finance the purchase of those air packs. Does that all make sense?
Yes, yeah, we're with you.
Okay. Okay. So then the change in net position is the cumulative effect of all your revenues, all of your expenses. You can see that your expenses did exceed your revenues by by 21,966, and then you can see how you get to your ending net position of 2,868,000. So I just wanted to walk you through that, and again, kind of highlight, I think, the presentation there with the capital contributions and that other non-operating revenues. I think that's important to point out because it's, again, helping to finance the non-capital equipment that you purchased. Okay, then I'm going to jump ahead. I just want to jump ahead to page 24. Page 24 is labeled as the schedule of operating expenses, budget, and actual. And this is just giving you a summary of your budget versus, again, those actual results. So it's only your expenses. So if you work down the left-hand side of the page, just focusing on different expense categories, if you work through the columns across, it starts out with the budget information. I'm going to just focus on the column labeled as final budget. The actual column is labeled as actual. That's your actual results for the fiscal year. And then the variance column is just comparing your budget versus your actual. In year two, I think, just want to give you some highlights. The highlights as you move through things like your total personnel services, contracted services. You're under budget in those areas. If you get down to the last category for other expenses, there you can see you're over budget. And if you focus on that line for the equipment support, that's again those, I'm going to call them the non-capital equipment, the packs and things that you purchased. So you can see the 202,000 of expenditures there. But again, that's really why you're over budget in that category. Then we move on to depreciation, and ultimately the last line there focusing on your total operating expenses. Again, the 727 in total expenses. So I just wanted to walk you through that real quickly.
Can you remind me why there's there's an original line and a final line, and it looks like it's identical to each other? Is that just in the chance that as a board we would have voted to change the budget during mid-year, or why are the two different? Go ahead.
Yep, that's a really good question. So the professional governmental accounting standards require that you present both the original and the final budget, and it's exactly because of the reason that you mentioned. In the event that an organization would, possibly make a budget amendment or something during the year, so that the reader of the statements can see both what was originally adopted as well as that final budget. So it's just our professional standards.
Thank you.
It's a good question. Okay, then if I jump ahead, I'm going to just jump to page 26. And pages 26 and 27. So from an audit standpoint, because your audit is conducted in accordance with government auditing standards, in addition to our audit opinion, we are also required
Yeah, we're good.
Yep. So you've seen it in the past, and I would fully expect that you will continue to see that going forward. So, okay, that's all the comments that I had with regards to the financial statements. And again, if anyone has any questions, please let me know. I do want to make a couple brief comments on the other document, the letter document that you've also received. So hopefully you have this in front of you. I know there's a lot of information here. I just want to give you an overview. So I'm really not even going to drill into any specific topics. I just want to give you an overview of the purpose and the content of what's here. Again, in accordance with our professional standards, there's language and information that we're required to communicate as the board. That's what's included in this letter. I would describe it to be the language and the terminology to be pretty standardized, again, because it's coming from our professional standards. It's going to talk about things like accounting practices and accounting policies, accounting estimates, and other information and topics that we're required to communicate as part of the audit process. From my perspective, there's really nothing in this letter that I would say is unusual for an organization of your size, and there's nothing that I would consider to be a red flag. If you see any topics that you would like me to discuss further, I would be more than happy to. But again, it's the content is pretty similar to what you've seen in the past, and that really covers the first 3 pages of that document. And then what you'll see is attached to the back of that is, as part of the audit process, we always ask for a letter, a representation letter from the organization, so you can see that it's on Ripon Fire District letterhead addressed to CLA. But we ask for representation that we've received everything that we've requested as part of the audit process. So that's a copy of that letter. It's our standard practice to include that as a part of this reporting package and attach it to the back of the letter that you have in front of you. Any thoughts or questions on that?
Any questions from anybody? Nope, no questions from here, Brian.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I certainly, again, thank you for your time, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to call in here. So I want to thank you for that. If you do have any questions that come up in the future, certainly feel free to reach back out. Either myself or Amber Jewiski, the manager on the engagement. I mean, we would be certainly happy to answer any questions, do whatever we need to do to answer those questions. So feel free to reach out.
All right, very good. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
You also.
Yep. Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna log off, guys.
Okay.
Okay, yep, bye-bye.
Bye. I think he was gonna leave.
Log on.
I didn't think he was gonna leave. Like saying goodbye to his
He's in the column, they're excited, it's in the column. I'll make a motion to accept the audit as presented.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Any new business?
I'm gonna finish.
Discussing.
I was kinda in the middle of,
Yeah.
I only got about 25 minutes. So anyway, to cut it down a little bit shorter, there was, after meeting with the school district, we got 19 applications or 19 interests for cadets. I went to the school, I met with 14, showed up for a meeting. I have gotten a couple of those back. And as far as the internship, we're gonna have to create an intern position if we wanna take those kids as intern and let them get credit for that. The other thing is, we had 2 applicants that I said put into a future internship file. Those 2 applicants were very strong applicants, currently on fire departments, but not in firefighter class yet. We didn't want to throw those people off to the side, because those are people that we could potentially get for our department. And so what I'd like to do is create an internship position over the next couple months to where if somebody's in class, to take them in as an intern where they don't get paid, and it's just to be, it's gaining experience as being part of our department. And as they get that entry-level firefighter, then we can start using them, then they qualify to work here part-time. So, it's something that, I'd like to pursue in the future, but,
What was the difference between the cadet and the intern?
Um,
Why the two programs, and would it be?
age, because the cadets only go up to 18,
18?
so that would be anyone over the age of 18. So, the two in there, I think the one was 21 and then 20. So, so that's, you know, that's why I'd like to keep those kids. Now, as far as the internship with the high school, I don't know. I don't know how all that would work out, you know?
In a sense, that's where I was thinking,
What's,
high school,
what's
18
the,
and under.
what's the, yeah, I haven't thought that far into the process, but I just wanted to throw it out there. That's something I think we should at least, you know, not recreate the wheel, but maybe check in with other fire departments on how they do it, so.
Two questions that follow up. When you said that the cadet, the difference is the age, is that something that we set, or is that set by state?
That's something that we said.
Okay, and then my second question is, I hate that as a society, we always have to worry sometimes about liability. But when I was a school counselor, locally, the youth apprenticeship program that students work through, that sort of organization that is, you know, partly funded through the state, they cover liability for organizations, for businesses that work with those students. Is there anything we have to worry about with taking on high school, younger people with, you know, climbing ladders? Is liability anything?
We have, all that's been addressed in the past for the last, like, however long, 6 years that we've had the cadet program. So we have waivers for the parents to sign, and all that's been through our legal department. So, there is no liability there for us.
There's always liability.
There's always liability, but you know what I'm saying, I don't,
So we're covered.
as much as we can be,
As much as you can be.
yeah.
The reason why I ask is because that was a reason why some, like, local electricians would go through the youth apprenticeship program rather than doing their own internship for that very reason, which is why I asked.
Okay. But staffing has opened up doors for us in the future. Staffing, we had a firefighter, first of all, the staffing has started as of today. It went very smooth, it went very well this morning. Right now, we have anywhere between 3 and 4 people here because of training purposes, okay? Like, we can't just put them on the engine by themselves and let them go. So I've went through the budget, I've ran the numbers with Barb, and they support us doing this, and we should be just fine, okay? But the staffing started today. It was kind of a relief off my shoulders. I came in, I was just relieved that we had it. So, you know, staffing is for weekdays, but I'll give an example of yesterday. Yesterday we had 1 member out on medical, 1 member out sick off the battalion that's supposed to be on call. Those members who are sick or injured do not find their own replacements. We find their replacements for them. That's our job, is to get them covered. If it's not for those reasons, they cover themselves. Well, it's a weekend, it's, you know, Halloween, all this stuff. And yesterday, we had Engineer Fader, John Ryan, Engineer Miller, and 1 other member who was gonna have a slow response, that was his response, and myself. I rode the officer's seat of the engine yesterday if something would have happened, and, you know, I jokingly told Renee, I said, if we get something, because she said, I haven't seen you sit up there in a long time. I said, well, if we get something, I'm gonna put a air pack on and go to work, and I'll probably die doing it, but whatever, I gotta do what I gotta do. So, I was joking, but, But realistically, that was how short-staffed we were, and that's our problem weekdays also. So, you know, my goal was to do it by November 1st. I truly didn't believe I could get it done, but we did. Where we stand now is that we have all the days covered except for Tuesdays. So Tuesdays, we revert back to the way we do it now. Next month, that'll all change, and the reason for that is because we got one individual who works on the Town of Algoma Fire Department, who works with North Fond du Lac part-time. He had already put his part-time schedule in for North Fond du Lac. Another person wants to work, you know, he's doing shifts on the ambulance on Campbellsport, and he's working with us as the fire end of it part-time. And then another firefighter's in school, was out of town, so there's, trying to get it done quickly, you know, we ran into some of that short notice stuff. But it's worked out really well, and next month should be better for us. Trying to think. They do fill out when they're here, like today, for example, they keep track in a logbook of everything they do. So everything they clean, everything they fix, everything they do, where they go, what they're doing, they keep track of. And the example to that is, this is everything that a normal day would, a normal work day would take in, and then their calls would be written in red. Anything from the night before that I want to pass on for the next day is written and highlighted in yellow. So when that person comes in, they look at that, they know what they need to do, special things they need to do in addition to their normal workday schedule. So that's kind of how they track everything they do. If you ever want to see what they do, that's in there. I think that's all I have. I'm willing to take questions. I will tell you that, you know, looking at it, the individuals we hired, when we did the schedule, there's days, pretty much we have one EMT on the engine every day. Some days we have two, most days we have two, a couple days we have three. So, but they're firefighter EMTs, they're currently on our fire departments, and we were introducing them starting last night to the membership. We did meet with the membership. We didn't change a lot we changed nothing when it came to running orders of what responds on calls, because the engine is 51, is our rapid response right now. And all the members have been very positive about it. They're buying in, they're being part of it at a limited basis, and pretty much that's it. You know, there's things I'm expecting a list of this long of things that, you know, things that have gotten better, things we need, things just things that should be getting done or whatever. So, I know I'm kind of talking in circles, there's just so many moving parts to it, but if you guys have questions, I would love to entertain those questions and answer those questions.
So it's still just a growing pains kind of thing too, right?
We're, you know, obviously when you start something new, we think it's gonna work, we hope it works. If it doesn't work, we gotta go back to the drawing board. You know, there's things we're gonna have to tweak, it's new, it's a learning experience, we've never been down this road before. You know, those are all conversations we've had this morning with the guys. It's, hey, this is new, we haven't been down this road. You know, we can learn from you, you can learn from us, and, you know, this is our goal. And I had a shift meeting this morning with the guys and explained to them that, you know, why we're doing it, and be ready to go and have your equipment and know your job. And, you know, we're here to provide a service. So, anybody else have any questions, please ask.
None of these new guys are running 51.
No. The only thing is that, like say, take for example, a day like yesterday. If we would have been a month into this, I would have probably asked 2 of those or 3 of those members if they wanted to work yesterday, instead of having myself and John Ryan and 2 engineers. Okay, but no, they are gonna be trained in that, just in case, but that's not the intent. And again, I had a meeting with each battalion last night, explained everything, gave them a chance to answer questions. they've all bought into it. They're very supportive of it. You know, I went home and I told my wife, I told Renee, I said, she goes, how did it go? I said, well, I have guys who are excited about it. And girls, and I have guys and girls who are cautious, I think. They're kind of sitting back, seeing how it goes. But I believe, but I have the whole department understands what we're up against. So there's the excited, there's the cautious, and then there's the whole group that understands the need. So, other questions?
I'll just add, you know, that you said you couldn't believe it yourself, you got it going by November 1st. You know, as a community member also, obviously I serve on this board, I think that what's impressive to me is that you recognize a need, we moved quickly as a whole, and you made it happen. That I think our area is seemingly safer because of the quickness and attention.
Well, I've talked to residents, I've talked to a couple of residents out there, and, you know, I told the board's been supportive, and those people have said, you know, that we want a fire truck to show up. we want to be, whatever we got to do, you know, so, but again, it's you guys being supportive, believing in me, and giving me a chance, so I appreciate it, and, you know, there's going to be growing pains, so, and there's going to be questions, you know, they're not, one of the guys left today, I said, what's wrong with you? He's like, kind of exhausted, you know, because they worked hard today, so, and I was proud of them for that.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Yep.
On the board discussion, December meeting, Mr. Regula will be gone. I may or may not be here,
Okay.
so we may or may not have a meeting.
If there's nothing major that needs to be brought up, then not having a meeting is not gonna hurt us.
But we'll, I'll
As it
send
gets,
out an email on it.
And I think if something comes up, if something's pressing, I can email all of you and say, this is what's going on, we need to meet, or I can email you an update. I can print out an update for you and give it to you if that's what you need, so.
You can call me, Jim.
Anybody have any future agenda items? I don't need to know them tonight, but give them to me.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that needs to be done by the end of the calendar year, is there?
Well, usually all we do is if there was any surplus funds, we do some turnover here, something to use up those funds, but we're not in that position.
sorry.
No, for sure. But yeah, it's nothing I can think of at this moment, but obviously a lot can happen in November here yet, you know.
Do we have any or all of the firefighters that have retired, have we paid all of them out, if we still have some?
I'm pretty sure all of them, yeah, we should be at zero for that. We should be at zero for that. And speak of,
I
I
don't know
wanted
if
to,
somebody came up, retired since then, if they.
I did want to talk about one other thing, and that was, I did have one member resign, last week. He's been here for just over 5 years. It's Nate Bell. I thank him for his service. He was a good firefighter for us. He just came to me last week and he said, look, I'm working full time. I'm not getting home till 7 o'clock. And he said, I'm just beat. He's trying to open his own workout. I can pick a semi-up business, and he's got a family. And he said, I just don't have time for it. And, you know, I think back to the last few people, 8 to 10 that I've talked to in the last, over the summer months that I've been back, you know, for the ice cream shop, and they all say the same thing. It's the way it is. So, thank you for his service, and we just try to, you know, even the ones who are busy, we try to show some flexibility to them to make sure they stay around, but it can't be a free-for-all, so.
Great. All right, So if we, oh, go
Well,
ahead.
I was just gonna, I guess because if we don't meet before the Christmas season, I know that that's often a time when you put out some statements from the department about being safe with lighting and candles and those types of things. I don't know if there's anything else to be said.
Yeah, no, we have, Saturday we'll be delivering pizzas with the fire truck, with, teaming up with Roadhouse and Ace Hardware from 5 to 7, actually 5 to 8. And so if your pizza's delivered and your smoke detector and CO detectors work, then your order's free. So we've been doing this for the last 5 years, and it's a huge success. So we're doing that, and we always get messages out on fire safety. We're very, on social media and stuff like that, so. But that's coming up, and we have our holiday raffle coming up December 20th. And then it'll be a Facebook Live feed, December 20th at 7 PM, so.
I think it's gonna be purchased from any firefighter.
Any firefighter, yep.
Buy some tickets.
So if we have a December meeting, it'll be December 7th. And other than that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned, 7:53.